Berries are some of nature's most delicate, delicious, delectable creations. We'll show you some of the best varieties of raspberries and blueberries to grow in the Northland, and we'll tell you how to raise them right here on Great Gardening.
If you look, you actually see the growth for next year.
This is a plant that's been infected with early blight.
I can feed a lot of people.
I always want to use a garden fork.
You just wrap it.
Take a look at the environment, try to work with your environment.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Great Gardening. I'm Pamela Fish, along with our resident experts in all things from the garden, Tom Casper, the Supervisor of Park Maintenance for the City of Duluth, and Bob Olin, horticulturist and state and St. Louis County educator. Gentlemen, thanks for being here again. And before we get to our topic of the week, which of course is berries, what is going on out there this week? What have you been working on? What do you see out in the yards and gardens?
Well, I would say that we've had almost a perfect combination of some nice rainfall, some good sunlight, and this has been just an ideal time to do a lot of direct seeding, do a lot of transplanting. I think so far we're off to a great start, great spring so far. What do you think, Tom?
I'm going to agree with you again, Bob.
Oh dear,
yes.
this is trouble.
Yeah, it's going to be an easy show. Yeah, it's a great spring, exactly. The moisture that we've been getting lately and now these warm days are just ideal to really be out working in the garden as well as getting your garden ready for the summer. So.
All right, excellent. Well, we also welcome back our phone volunteers who are standing by to answer your called-in questions. This week, they're from the Duluth Garden Flower Society Xena City Diggers Club. So please call them right now. The number is 218-788-2844 or call toll-free 877-307-8762. They will get your questions to our experts for their expert advice.
We should really quickly add, that they are a club within the society, and for any folks that are interested in getting involved with a garden club, there's many local garden clubs like the Xena City Diggers around our community. So go out and look for them and really get involved in learning more about gardening and really enjoying the environment that's around us. So.
Volunteering here is just one small piece of all the wonderful things they do out in our communities. Raspberries, that's what we want to talk about tonight. And when they are fresh from the garden, they are a highly anticipated treat. Well, last summer, we met with a longtime grower who shared some of the secrets of his success.
We started back in the early 80s. Bob Olin and the Extension had a commercial raspberry production seminar, and we had already given it some thought, and we were looking to do it, and we did. We put in about an acre. And at the time we put the whole field into Boyne was the variety. And so that puts those plants at about 30 years old, and they're still producing quite well. Everything this side of us is Boyne. To the north of us, there's 6 rows of a newer variety that went in about 5 years ago called Nova. Nova, I think, does better in a good year, but it also tends to be a little more fragile as far as winter hardiness. So I think the two of them give us some stability with the Boyne and kind of a little bit of an advantage in a good year with the Nova. The Nova's a little later, and they both make a good quality berry. We're happy with both of them. They need a steady moisture supply. You got to get your pH of your soil up. We limed this 2 years ago, and that made a real big jump in the yield. So getting that pH up in that 6.5, 6.8 range. So we soil test every year, and we try to follow that as close as we can. And that's one of the things. Keeping on top of the diseases. There is an old product, lime sulfur, that keeps most of your diseases at bay, and we tend to mow between the rows for weed control. Number one is that the quality and the quantity of fruit is there, and then also the ability to get it off without storms knocking them down or birds getting them or disease getting them. If you give them a gentle squeeze, you don't end up with the core in them. So I generally will give them a gentle squeeze as we're picking them. But even so, you still get a few of them from time to time. We're probably a few days before the peak, today being August 3rd, and we probably, by the weekend, they'll peak, and they'll probably be done in 10 days to 2 weeks. We've been picking for a little over a week. So typically our season runs 3 to 4 weeks. Again, some of that is temperature dependent. So then when they're done, we really don't do much until spring, and then we come in and have to dig out cut out the old canes, because these are what are called the flora cane. In other words, the new canes coming up this year will be next year's fruiting canes. Because once they've done fruiting, they're dead. We got to get those out of here. Part of it is for disease control, part of it is just the nuisance of having them in the way. We try to bring ours down to about a foot wide in the row, and somewhere between the 6 and 10 canes per running foot. So when you've got a foot wide by a foot long, you want that 6, 8, 10 canes in that area, good healthy canes. The new canes will be green, and they'll have the bark will be tight on them, and they'll be a much lighter color. But by bringing that width of the bed down, you get air ventilation, and that's the best thing that you can do for disease control, is keep air moving in here so that the spores from the different fungi don't get a chance to set up camp and colonize your plants. You can do a lot with long-handled snippers and a weed whacker, so it's not as laborious, but still, to renovate this field in the spring, it's about 50 hours of work. An acre is almost overwhelming just to take care of them and get them all picked and marketed. But we've been doing it for 30 years, so you kind of get used to it.
And the taste, of course, makes it worth it as well.
Exactly.
I like that. You just get used to being overwhelmed.
That's right. The life of a farmer.
Hoffbauer, of course, Doug has been a stalwart and has produced a lot of quality berries. Maybe we talk about varieties. He did like, of course, Boyne, that's been with us for quite a while, and Nova. And a third variety is Killarney, which is actually a sport of Boyne. Both are Canadian introductions. You've grown Killarney, and you like Killarney?
Yeah, they're a wonderfully large berry that is just outstandingly sweet and perfect when it's ripe.
Then we got one other, Latham, which was introduced by the University of Minnesota actually in the 30s, and it's still a good variety that a lot of people have. So we got a lot of good choices for our summer-bearing raspberries.
Absolutely. Well, while those were harvested at the height of summer, many berries are ripened much later in the year. Here's Bob with more on that.
We have an example here of some trials of fall-bearing raspberries. The key to these varieties really is good growth early in the season, and then a long protracted fall where you can actually mature the fruit before freeze-up. So you need a good year for these, but we are looking at earlier season and earlier producing varieties, and I'll mention a couple here. Autumn Bliss and Autumn Britain are probably two of us early varieties that are very, very effective. Make sure you've got adequate fertility, because these are large, very aggressive vegetative canes that are growing. And then when they get to a certain height, about 40 nodes, they'll begin to flower and ultimately set fruit. And we're using a combination here of organic fertilizers supplemented with a small amount of synthetic nitrogen to get this good growth. I think the key thing, if you're establishing a new raspberry patch, you start with very clean material. They're all vulnerable to virus. So start with what we call virus-indexed or virus-free material. The fall-bearing varieties grow a little bit different, and it depends on how you want to manage the crop. The fall crop is the premier crop with the very, very large fruited fruits here. But once this is formed and this has been harvested, the remainder of the cane will mature and will produce fruit early in the season next year. So you have a choice. You can wait for the follow-on crop in June, or you can just cut them to the ground and handle them and harvest them exclusively as a fall crop. But it all comes off the same fruiting cane. This is a little different than our summer-bearing varieties, where we really grow one cane vegetatively, and that cane produces exclusively fruit the second year. So it's a little bit about timing. And if in fact we are going to be experiencing warmer falls in the future, I think that some of these fall-bearing varieties definitely can be a significant source of fruit for us. Matter of fact, nationwide, the fall bearers have become the #1 producing varieties nationwide, and that's mainly because this crop goes into processing and they're a little bit easier to manage and mechanically harvest and manage compared to some of our summer-bearing varieties. The nice thing about some of the fall bearers, if they mature, is they are really of dessert qualities, so the actual fruit is larger, and they are very, very sweet. Excellent.
Eating
Those
on the
are
job.
good. Those are good, and we got a taste of them as well. It wasn't just Bob that was eating them. Judy, our photographer, and myself, and they were delicious.
Yeah, I really think that people should look at the fall bearers. You know, right now with a good fall bearing variety, you can get the fruit in the fall, let them grow out. You can get fruit in June, and then you can follow up with late July, early August fruit on your summer bearing varieties. So we're fortunate we can grow a lot of quality raspberries in this area. Farther south they cannot. They're really a northern temperate crop, and people should really give them a try.
They should take advantage of that. Well, another of nature's candies is blueberries, and they too are not only delicious but very good for you. But are the blueberries harder to grow? A lot of people might say that.
In some ways, because you've got certain characteristics that you have to follow. You need an acidic soil, you need good drainage, and you need full sunlight. But once they're established, they're almost maintenance-free. A little bit of pruning over time, but they take a little bit more time to get established, maybe a little bit more effort to get established. But once they're fruiting, then they really fruit for a long, long time.
And some varieties we want to talk about that are good for this area. You mentioned the North Blue to start, and you can go through these with us, Bob.
Okay, North Blue was the original introduction for the half high, and it's still one of the very best. That, along with the one at the bottom of the list, North Sky. North Sky has become more of an ornamental, which is kind of nice because you got a fruiting ornamental. It's a little smaller in stature. Chippewa, Polaris, Northland, and then Superior was the last introduction, with the exception of Northland, which is University of Michigan variety introduced for the UP. The rest of them were University of Minnesota introductions, just meaning they're very, very hardy. The rootstock's hardy, and in most cases they're smaller in stature, so the protection from the snow during the winter will ensure that you get a crop in most years. All
right. Also a new type of berry that's also blue, and it's being touted by some of the area greenhouses. Have you guys tried this honeyberry?
You know, I have. I think to compare it to a blueberry, you got to remember they're really in the honeysuckle family. I think blueberries are still the much better eating, but they've got certain advantages. They are very, very hardy. Most of the cultivars have come from even farther north. The University of Saskatchewan's introduced them. They are cold tolerant. They are high in antioxidant, but they're not quite as delectable as a blueberry, in my opinion.
Okay. One other one that is newly popular, I understand, from a couple of area greenhouses I've talked to, is the sea berry, and that's because it's has so many vitamins, antioxidants, fall bearing, easy to grow. Tom, you said you tried the juice of this once.
Yeah, it's a little tart, and I think where they're saying good to use with juice, and maybe adding a little sweetener to it will make them a lot better.
Right.
But certainly high in vitamins made it worthwhile.
Okay.
So.
Well, we better get to some of our questions because they are coming in fast and furious. Let's start with this one from Scott in Tower, who says, since we've had an early spring, can I plant my tomatoes out early before June 1st?
Ooh, well, if you're a gambler, you definitely can. You know, I think we talked about moving the season up, and we've been cheating about a week to 10 days, and he might think about June 1st or the first week in June. In Tower, boy, that's pushing it a little bit.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Wait, I think at least
Wait
until maybe the, June 7th, June 8th, June 10th, right in that range.
Karen from Cornucopia says her rhubarb is bolting. Why is it so early?
It's bolting the seed just because we've had this real rapid growth. Those are the seed heads that are there. Get those cut off. They just drain energy from the plant. Shouldn't impact it at all because they happen to come early. Cut them as soon as you see them.
Okay. Bonnie from Cloquet wanted to know about that white rose, old-fashioned white rose, old garden rose, I guess they call it, that we showed on the tour last year.
Last week.
Last week.
Right. In Kathy Ogren's wonderful rose garden, and that was David Alexander, which is an outstanding, very hardy, very disease-resistant, old-fashioned garden rose. So.
And other beautiful white ones out there to choose from as well.
Right.
Though.
Now you're going to make me say this. Blanc Double de Corbert is a beautiful white that continues to bloom as long as you remove the spent flowers off of it. So.
All right. Might want to try that one as well. Lori from Babbitt has a 4-foot blue spruce. It has pinholes in the trunk near the top, killed the top. Can she treat that?
It's going to be a little difficult. We'd have to take a little closer look to see what caused the actual damage. More than likely, it could have been a sapsucker, could have been porcupine, something that actually damaged that upper portion. It'll never retain its natural pyramidal shape. So you can keep it alive, yes, but to have a nice shape is going to be very difficult. So she might consider replanting.
Okay.
Yeah, and really porcupines in the wintertime are out looking for that bark, and they're really at the center of the tree doing that damage during the wintertime. So.
Okay. Well, Bob in Superior wants to know if it's safe to use green-treated wood for a garden bed, and I guess Depends on who you ask, or
Well, now it's pressure treated, so it's no longer has the chemicals that we were concerned about years ago. So it should be okay.
I think if he has any reservations, I always advise people buy dried, cured, preserved wood if you're going to use that. Opt for the brown material as opposed to the green material, and then you can take those boards and line the inside with heavy plastic, and you'll never have a concern.
all right. Well, we're going to have more questions later, but we need to get our fix of flowers in for this half hour. So here's this week's Great Garden Tour.
Welcome to my garden. My name's Kurt, and we're in Lincoln Park neighborhood of Duluth, and this is a Goat Hill area, and I've lived here for 16 years, and this is the garden I've created over that time. I've built a lot of stone walls, fire pit, and kind of base my gardens from here. It's sort of like a little amphitheater as you look up the hill. 95% of the rock that you see here all came from this site, and it's nothing but a rock pile. It's great, you know, it gives you free building materials. I have a lot of daylilies that I love. Love lilies, echinacea, whatever blooms well. A friend of mine in the Twin Cities, I think the term is breeds daylilies. You know, he actually takes a little Q-tip and cross-pollinates them, and he sent me up a bunch of different ones that have now started blooming, and so they could be really unique varieties. The soil's really good. There used to be this was a pasture up above. They used to graze cattle up there for a dairy farm that used to be down in the West End. And I guess the neighbors tell me that they would herd them up the hill every day, and they would graze up here, and then they would take them back down. So I think that maybe over the years, some of that fertility has washed its way down into my yard, or what became my yard. I really like ornamental conifers. That's a weeping Norway spruce back there. Once I learned to deal with the deer issue around here, things, you know, I cage everything in the wintertime. You should see it. It's like, there's like 100 little cages around every conifer and a lot of the different shrubs. And then in the summertime, I spray religiously with liquid fence. This is a called an Uncle Fogey jack pine. It's a prostrate jack pine, so it just kind of rambles along the ground. And that tree there is a Japanese larch, which get to be about 75 to 100 feet tall. They're grown in Great Britain for utility poles. It's basically a tamarack. It's related to the tamarack tree, so they turn that bright yellow in the fall, and they drop all their needles. And this is my little woodland garden. I call it all the ferns, the ligularia, which I love, the yellow blooming one, and the monk's hood. This whole area I kind of planted with stuff that is really resistant to the deer. This goes up to the Lake Spear hiking trail, which is up here maybe about another 200 feet. It runs across, it goes up to Enger Tower. We're just below Enger Tower where we're at here. And this is a hops vine. Wild ginger. This is one of my favorite plants. It's a climbing hydrangea vine on the tree there. It has yet to bloom, but they will grow to 50 feet tall. They take a while to get established. I bring all my houseplants out for the summer. I call it summer camp. And so they get tucked here and there in the garden. This is a plant called hot buttered popcorn. If you brush the leaves and smell it.
Yum. Well, we did share Kurt's garden with you during our early spring special back in March, but it was certainly worth revisiting. Beautiful place.
Nice.
We're getting a lot of questions in. Let's go. Lenore from Ely wants to know, what kind of blueberry bush can we plant in Ely if it's rocky and along the lake?
Ooh, that's a good question. Blueberries do like soil, so she wants to find these soil pockets. They're all relatively shallow rooted, any that are good and hardy. If it's very shallow soil, she could try North Sky. If she's got a little bit more soil there, then any of the others are going to do just fine. North Blue, Chippewa, Polaris, or Northland. I'd probably stay away from Northland. It's not quite as hardy as the other varieties we talked about.
Okay. Beverly in Virginia, mildew appearing on my raspberries on the berry. What can she do? Can she spray something, or there's another option, Tom?
Well, of course, our tour that we had of the Hofbauers, he talked about maintaining some air circulation between the plants, and she may want to look at try to increase the airflow between that. Really, mildew and a lot of our other funguses have a lot to do with sort of lack of air movement. So.
And you've got to do that before. I think the other thing that you'll want to do, you know, a lot of people will take out the spent canes, the old canes, last year's fruiting cane, but you want to take out some of the new canes as well. Those that are smaller than a lead pencil, clean those out so you again get this air movement.
Okay. Lillian from Superior wants to know, will black currant grow here?
Oh, definitely. Black currant will grow good and hardy. Nice juice that comes from that. Actually, I'd almost prefer seeing people trying something we know does well and is productive like black currant as opposed to some of these new, a little bit more unusual introductions.
Pat in Esco wants to know if I can still move my bleeding heart.
Sure, as long as it's not too tall, and she may set it back a little bit, but as we know, bleeding hearts are such a tough perennial. It's ideal to move it in the fall or divide it in the fall, but if she's just looking at wanting to move it, pick the whole thing up if she can and move it in as much intact as possible.
All right. Wayne from Saginaw, asparagus garden has moss in there. Is that a good or a bad thing?
Ooh, what I don't like about that is asparagus really likes good drainage. And anytime you've got moss, it's a sign that there's constant moisture there. So that's not really a good indicator.
This is for Tom, I guess. Karen from Kettle River says, how do you get rid of red squirrels?
I think I met Karen a few
She
days
says
ago.
You met each other, and you must have had an interesting answer for it.
Well, no, we were at the doctor at the same time, and she had, anyway, we didn't have a chance to finish the conversation.
Did you
we
say
went our
BB
separate
gun,
ways.
or did you say, what did you
Well,
tell
I
her?
can't admit to that. Red squirrels are tough, you know, and they're
Yeah.
generally there because there's something to eat. If she's feeding the birds, she wants to probably cut that and get rid of those kinds of things that they're coming after is probably the most effective way, because they're really just looking for food like the rest of us.
Sure.
And to minimize that or reduce that will help a lot with that.
You know, one thing that people can try that they do, if they don't want to trap them, don't want to eliminate them, then cover them with fine mesh netting. You know, you really have to do something.
Cover the squirrels?
Well, that would work too.
Cover the
Track
plants,
'em
I
down.
think. Okay, Candy, a master gardener in Carleton County, wants to know if it's too early to set out peppers and tomato plants.
I'd say definitely a little early.
Okay.
Yeah, you're really pushing it. We're going to look at, if you want to push it, come the 4th week in May.
Sure.
And then you're already cheating the
And
season a little bit.
especially with peppers, that soil, if it's even a little cold, they're just going to sit there anyway. So,
Okay, Shirley in Floodwood, how do I get rid of my Chinese lantern?
ooh, that's a tough one to get rid of. It can be a bit invasive, but you can dig that out, similar to some of the other problematic perennials that we talk about occasionally. So trying to dig that out, pull them as much as you can. Don't allow them to go to bloom. And she should have a pretty good chance of success getting rid of them, but she's got to be diligent and keep pulling them as they're showing up and try to dig them out. So,
Tom, you said one thing that's really critical for weed control. Never let anything go to seed, particularly anything that seeds as an annual as well.
Here's a question from Nancy in Rice Lake Township, wondering if a summer wine 9 bark would be a good choice for a small front yard tree, and also wondering would it end up being deer food?
yes and yes.
Okay.
They're beautiful. They
They are
don't get
nice.
very big.
Sure.
They are not at mature size, no more than about 7 or 8 feet tall. So it is a very much of an ornamental, decorative kind of thing, but it is deer candy, so she'll want to protect it.
Okay, well, we have a few left, and please bear with us. We'll try to get to those next week. We'll hang on to them for now. We got a lot of information in. The questions were coming fast, and the answers as well. But before we go, I want to mention that next Sunday, May 20th, Tom and I will be taking a busload of gardeners on one of our Northland garden tours. This is one that we've never done before. We're going to tour spring gardens in northwest Wisconsin, Bayfield, and Madeline Island. We'll visit an apple orchard. There's an opportunity to buy bare root perennials. We're even going to stop at a winery, aren't we, Tom?
Yes, we are.
And a couple of tickets have come available. So if you're interested in our spring garden tour to Bayfield, call the station at 788-2831 and think about joining us for that. But again, all the time we have left, you guys are going to be awful busy this week, I imagine.
It's just a great time of year. Enjoy every bit of it. But yeah, other than the tomatoes and the peppers, people can really get started with just about everything else.
Yep. Celebrate some time with your mother this weekend.
That too.
Absolutely, and get out there. All the greenhouses and garden centers are open. There are beautiful things to buy for Mother's Day and for other occasions as well.
right.
Is there also something about Saturday, a fishing opener?
Yeah, that's
Oh, that's right.
Us gardeners
If
don't
you
worry
have
about that.
time, if you have have time, drop
Busy-
a line
busy
in too.
weekend.
Okay, thanks a lot. Well, thanks again to our phone volunteers from Xena City Diggers, our garden experts, Bob Olin and Tom Casper, and of course, all of you who called in. From all of us here, thanks for watching and enjoy the garden.